idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Spice presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It's time to recap week 2. Had another good week of NFL football. A lot more points scored, but also, unfortunately, a lot more injuries to go along with it. Al, how are you feeling after 2 weeks?
Football is really back now.
Yeah, we managed to scrape by last week without the season-ending injuries and without the really big ones, and then they came in full force this week.
Yeah, we got the points, we got the injuries. Last week was just extended preseason. This was real football.
That's a good way to put it. It does seem like that more and more every year, that the first week or even sometimes first couple weeks of the season is just teams still feeling stuff out. But the points were there this week. League median last week was 181.07. This week it was 209 even. So a very sizable jump right there.
Yeah.
But before we get to the league median and all those scores, we have a couple of trades and some waivers to discuss. So let's get back into the real swing of things here and go over to the trades. These are both your trades.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
give us something to talk about.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think most of the league is still just sort of waiting to see if they're legit, waiting to see, how the first couple weeks shake out and, should they buy, should they sell, what's the actual landscape of the league look like? Because, outside of Big and Mr. Good News, I think all the rest of us are kind of just up in the air.
Yeah, it definitely feels like everyone is kind of feeling out their team and the rest of the league and trying to see how those first few weeks are going to go based on the preseason projections where everyone was kind of jumbled up. And we said we wouldn't be surprised 2 through 11 if any of these teams were in any order. So far, it's played out that way.
All right, so let's take a look at these trades that you managed to pull off anyways. Our first trade was between you and Judd. This one's pretty simple. You sent Judd DeAndre Hopkins and your own 2026 second-round pick, and in return, you got Chris Godwin. Godwin's out injured right now. He's not on the PUP, so he could be back at any time, but he's not yet. Hopkins had a good week 1, caught a touchdown, and caught another one week 2, so he's producing points, but obviously he's a little bit older than Godwin, doesn't have that ceiling, so you had to pay that second-round pick to get a little bit younger.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jed, for giving you points against me this week. Giving you another starter for the week.
I don't know what Judd's goal is with this trade. Is his goal to get points on the roster with Hopkins playing now and Godwin still out injured? Is his goal to get the extra pick for the future for a bit of a retool? Or is it just that he liked the value enough? I'm not sure what he was going for. I could tell what you're going for, but I don't know what he's going for.
Well, that was kind of the thought behind the trade, was that this is kind of a fence straddling trade for him. Get some immediate production now, lock in some value for the future in case he decides he needs to retool. So it was kind of a way for him to kind of toe the line. And
I think that this trade puts Judd in a decent spot. He can hold that pick up until next year if he decides that his team's not a contender and he wants to draft it, or if he just decides he has a couple small holes to fill and he just turn around and flip it and he doesn't have to dip into his own stuff. It makes sense short-term, long-term, pretty much every way you look at it. There's no guarantee that Godwin is the same player when he comes back, especially with Ibuka having a really strong start to the season.
But yeah, there's certainly risk that Godwin has already been phased out of the offense with how well Ibuka's been playing.
Yeah, he's like I said, he's off to a very strong start. It could be that they platoon all 3 of their wide receivers once Godwin's back and healthy. I mean, if he's back and fully healthy, he's a talented enough wide receiver that he's going to force his way into touches. It's just a matter of if he's back and if he's healthy and when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's more likely that Sterling Shepard gets pushed to the bench and they just roll out those 3, Ibuka, Evans, and Godwin. It's just a matter of what's the target share going to look like when he gets back? If Egbuka is already establishing himself like this, it's probably going to be a smaller piece of the pie than what he's been used to the last few years.
Well, it'll certainly be bigger than whatever percentage of that pie that Hopkins has, because despite the fact that he's got 2 touchdowns, I'm pretty sure he's done it on like 3 targets.
So all he does is score touchdowns. This is the most insanely efficient passing offense in history.
We talked about it before, though. It's probably just going to stay that way because Lamar.
Right. It's insane that no one else can do this, and they do it week after week, year after year.
No,
we
there's
saw,
a reason that Lamar won 2 MVPs
we
and
saw
was close to winning a third last year.
right. Targets on this offense are not equal to targets on other offenses.
We'll see how that one plays out long term. Let's go take a look at your other trade. This one was you and Mr. Good News making a trade. You acquired Juju Smith-Schuster and Olamide Zaccheaus. And in return, Mr. Good News picked up Charlie Kolar, Tyrell Shavers, a 2026 5th-round pick attached to Flinch's roster, and a 2027 4th-round pick attached to Big's roster. I'm guessing that he did these for the picks, not the players.
This is really your fault because you've been talking up Zaccheaus for like the last 7 years. So I had to finally get him on my roster. Now, I mean, really what I needed was someone to kind of bridge the gap for a few weeks because I have many receivers on IR currently. I traded for Godwin, who is out. I have Ayuk on the pup list. Kirk's missed the first couple of weeks, so I needed some immediate production, and trading away Hopkins kind of left me with a little bit of a hole. So I took a shot on Juju, who's going to get some extra run with Worthy hurt and Rice suspended, and Zaccheaus, who is currently playing over their stud rookie, but we'll see how long that lasts. But at least if they can give me some production in the intermediate time, it'll help kind of bridge a gap.
It does seem like Juju and Zaccheaus will at least do something for the next few weeks, which is more than you could say of guys like Godwin and Ayuk who are not healthy enough. So it's depth to add to the back of your bench, and it's not exactly an expensive price here, a 4th and a 5th. I assume the 2 guys that you were going to cut to add these to, I assume these weren't handpicked by Mr. Good News. Like I said, I assume he was in it for the picks here.
Right. Yeah, he was happy to get any picks for these guys that, again, are only going to have short-term value and are not helping him in the short term because he doesn't really need the points. It's not helping him accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So he's happy to take the picks and bank some future value.
Yeah, they're both getting targets. Sorry, they're both getting targets right now. They're both, maybe they're not going to have top end production, but getting those guys in your flex spots that have, 10 points or, catch a random touchdown are certainly useful.
Yeah, they're out there. I mean, there's not much in our free agency pool of players that play any amount of snaps at all. So
I was going to say not much is putting it lightly. Is it ugly this year. I don't think I've seen our waiver wire this bare in a few years.
We're gonna talk about waivers here shortly, and it's not pretty.
Well, you know what? That's what they call a transition right there. So let's just get to it. There was really only one waiver claim that is worth discussing here.
Davis Allen. Oh, that's not the one.
No, that would not be the one.
He's the only one that scored a touchdown off waivers this week.
He is the only one who scored. Actually, I don't know if he's the only one, but he definitely scored. And the main guy that we're about to discuss did not. But I think you just told me that Allen ran like 3 routes or something like that. So.
He did basically the same thing he did last week. He
so
played a handful of snaps.
We need to hold up the mirror when you hold up the mirror to Davis Allen, you see DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, exactly.
So really the only waiver claim worth discussing is Jake Tonjes, who went for $37. There was a lot of bids on this player. He ended up going to Big. Big won the bid at 37, obviously on Big's team and now in IR or on IR, excuse me, is George Kittle. So it made it a little bit more important for him to win this bid. But he outbid, you were the next highest at $32. So tell us why you thought you might win at 32.
Well, if you see that 75% of the league bid on this guy, who was the 49ers third string tight end a week ago,
Yep, you're not kidding. There was literally 9 bids on this player.
it shows you how tight end desperate this league is. And any tight end that is getting any kind of a workload is useful. He had a good week, not production wise, but I mean, he played 50 snaps, ran 30 plus routes, saw 5 targets. That's really good production from a tight end in this league. That's
Yeah.
starting level tight end production.
Oh, if
didn't
he
have
does
a-
that every week, Big will be thrilled with that $37 price.
Right. You can't find those guys on our waiver wire. Every
No,
tight
they
end
don't
with a
exist.
pulse is owned. People have tight ends on practice squads, tight ends that aren't even on active rosters anymore, hoping that they come out of retirement to
Yeah.
play again.
I think I held Waller for a full year.
So these are desperate tight end times. So
Yeah.
that's the reason that I bid so high, because I knew that he would be useful, if not to me, to somebody.
And he would have been a starter for many teams in the league this week. I don't recall if he made Big's lineup or not, but I think he did. But other bids, you bid 32, I bid 22, Judd 15, Flea 13, Mel 12, Georgia Mike 11, Mr. Good News 11, Flinch 0. Flinch, I don't think 0 is going to cut it.
It's so close.
But it does seem like most of the league, more than half of the bids there were in that $11 to $15 range. So I guess the rest of us were just a little bit over our skis on him. But still, 37 to the next highest bid of 32. That's not a large gap right there. Big's got to be happy with the price point he picked.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you're just happy that you got the player that you really wanted. There wasn't a lot else to bid on.
So as we teased a minute ago, there were some rough injuries this week. We're going to start at the quarterback position, where we appear to have lost Joe Burrow for, if not the entire season, at least the vast majority of it. Turf toe
he's
out
done.
at least, huh?
I said, yeah, he's done.
Yeah, no, out of what they said, at least 3 months, because he's going to have surgery on it. This only has like a 80% return to playing football rate. So there's, obviously the team and Burrow have too much invested to make it even somewhat likely that he walks away. But guys who get this injury and then have surgery on it don't always come back.
Yeah, because he tore the ligaments off his toes. It makes it really hard to run and plant and do things with your feet when your ligaments are no longer connected. So I'm guessing that we're not going to see him again this year unless they somehow manage a deep playoff run with Jake Browning. But even in that case, they probably just leave Browning in if he does
I know,
that.
right? If he's winning playoff games at that point, do you even risk Burrow? But
The sad thing is, this is now multiple seasons where we've seen huge chunks of the year just gone for Burrow.
It's tough. He's dealt with a lot of injuries since he's been in the league. His rookie year with the knee, and then he's had he had the wrist thing. He's every year it seems like something crops up for a little bit. It's sad too because he's really exciting when he's out there.
Yeah, and it just lowers the ceiling for the entire offense. This is one of the most entertaining offenses in the league, with arguably the best receiver in the league in Jamar Chase, and it lowers everyone's ceiling. I mean,
this lowers the value on Chase or Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, T. Higgins. I guess
all of the
you could say Gesicki, the tight ends, but really it's just those 3. But
I mean, in our league, the tight ends matter, and these guys
it's true.
They were already fringy options because Fant and Gesicki and Sample, and they rotate 4 or 5 different guys in there. But without the rising tide of the good offense, you kind of lose these pieces as well, which matters a lot in our league.
All right, so we'll hope that Browning can keep those guys afloat. Other quarterback injuries, Justin Fields is in the concussion protocol. I guess this is our first concussion of the year, so we'll say it now. We don't know when he'll be back. We hope it's not bad. There is no telling with concussions. Anyone who claims otherwise is lying. We wish him the best.
I think he may be less likely than most to play this week because Aaron Glenn already came out and said if he's not out there practicing Wednesday and Thursday, he's not playing. And most
Sure.
coaches will give their starting quarterback the leeway to not practice at all and still go out there and play. So I think maybe a different leash here.
I had not heard that. I guess you want to implement the game plan, and if he's not there to practice it, then I
Yeah, that's
really
basically what Aaron Glenn is saying. They're
really
going
is
to
there.
build it. They're going to build the offense this week around Tyrod if they know by Wednesday, Thursday that they're not going to have him.
And Tyrod's not a bad quarterback. He's been in the league long enough to be able to execute an offense. Fields obviously has a higher ceiling, but I would say that Taylor probably has a higher floor than Fields does.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think it may be a higher ceiling for the passing offense
Oh, for the
based on
passing offense, yes,
what we
but for the
saw
offense
last
as a
week.
whole, maybe not.
No, no.
Yeah. So again, concussion. We don't know anything. Anyone who claims to is lying. All right, JJ McCarthy already been ruled out. Apparently, he's an IR candidate as well. This kind of came out of nowhere after the game because he played the whole game. He finished everything.
Well, I think that, I mean, they're calling it a high ankle sprain, which usually comes with more severe swelling a day or two afterwards, which kind of makes sense on the timeline. If he got rolled up on one of his runs down the sidelines, I saw some replays where they think it may have happened and something like that. When you're feeding off the adrenaline during the game and it doesn't start swelling until you get it untaped and the shoe comes off, and the next
Right.
day or two it doubles in size. That's probably what happened. Although the conspiracy theorists will lead you to believe that he was it was a convenient way to bench him for a few weeks. Although I don't know why you would really be excited to get Carson Wentz out there. So be careful what you wish for. We'll see.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure that's if I had a different backup, I might, but
Yeah, well, don't worry. They signed Desmond Ritter as well today. So
did they? Hell, you gotta have two guys, and if
saved.
McCarthy's
Hooray.
gone, then
We're saved. Desmond Ritter is here.
McCarthy has had some struggles early on here.
That's putting it nicely.
Yeah, I think that this week, so he had a kid on Thursday. He like missed a couple days of practice or something, and then still went out there, and like you can't blame him for not having the best game of his life in his second career NFL start, 2 days after his kid was born.
Oh yeah, for the first several years after my kids were born, I could barely feed myself, so I can't imagine playing in an NFL game.
So hopefully he heals up and hopefully he comes back and plays like he did in that fourth quarter or week one. Another somewhat late breaking injury. We got a knee injury for Jaden Daniels. He finished the game. This was obviously Thursday, but I didn't hear about this until a couple days after the fact. Did I just miss it, or did they not talk about it?
Well, he definitely looked like a more limited player after the injury had happened in the game. I know the offense changed quite a bit. It could have just been that coincidentally they were down by so much that they changed up what they were doing, but he sure looked a little bit limited.
I had it earlier, but I forgot to write it down. Is he expected to play this week?
Not sure. Dan Quinn does not know. They don't know. I guess they're going to have to see how the knee responds, trying to practice on it all week. It's a sprained knee, so it's possible that he misses this week, but it doesn't look like a long-term thing either way.
You have to imagine that Washington is going to be careful with their young mobile quarterback with a knee injury. We've been down this road before and know where it goes.
And Mariota filled in admirably for him last year. So they have a backup that they feel comfortable with for a spot start.
A guy you can trust for a week or two.
Yep.
All right. So again, keep an eye on that. But good news for Rugg is that if he doesn't have Jaden Daniels, he'll have Carson Wentz.
Oh, right. Carson Wentz to the rescue. Hooray, we're saved.
All right. Other injuries. We had a couple running backs go down this week. Austin Eckler, torn
Oh,
Achilles.
that one
Oh, this
hurt.
is
We
brutal.
knew it. As soon as it happened, we knew
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah.
Said, yep, that's it.
Yeah, that sucks. But
Yeah.
by all accounts, Eckler a good dude and a fun player to have out there. As you said to me in the aftermath, fantasy football Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's been so good for fantasy, and not just as a player, but as someone who promotes this game that we all enjoy playing.
Yep.
You couldn't ask for a better ambassador for fantasy football than what Austin Eckler has done. He's really embraced it, which not all players are happy to do.
No, he's not just he doesn't just talk, he talks well about fantasy football. Like
He
he
plays it.
knows his stuff. Like
Yeah,
he's not just
he plays fantasy football. He's one of us.
yeah. He's not just out there like, trying to appeal to some people. Like he actually cares.
Yeah.
So,
So that was a rough one to watch because now you're talking about it's going to be a full year, and now he'll be 31 at the start of the year next year, and
right.
probably looking at a small prove it deal if anybody's even willing to sign him. It may be the end of Austin Eckler as a useful fantasy player, unfortunately, for all of us.
Probably unfortunately the case. I hope that if he wants to come back, he can. Because, sometimes teams are just reluctant to sign older guys like that. Also getting injured at the running back position this week, Aaron Jones hurt his hamstring. I'm pretty sure I saw he was placed on IR earlier today, so he's going to miss at least 4 weeks.
He was. And they signed, speaking of Achilles injuries, old friend Cam Akers is back. I mean, he played there last year. He knows the offense.
Yeah. He seems to be the break glass in case of emergency running back for like half the league right now. You know how like
He knows a
for
lot
the
of
Shanahan
offenses.
tree, it's Jeff Wilson. For the other half of the
Right.
league, it's Cam Akers.
Yeah, he filled in a few games from last year, and I know Chandler's out, and we may see Cam Akers active here very quickly.
I expect they're going to want someone who can go in there and spell Mason for a bit because you don't want to overload the one healthy guy who knows the full offense.
Right. Yeah, we saw San Francisco do that last year, give him 85% of the snaps for the first month, and then he ended up on IR as well. This is the reason that most teams don't give their starters 90% of the workload.
Someone tell Kyle Shanahan that. We have one receiver injury to talk about, and that's Jaden Reed. He broke a collarbone, and he's going to be out for a while. I think that's generally 6 to 8 weeks is what they say. So,
yeah, he did have the surgery to stabilize it, which will shorten the recovery time. So he may be out there sooner.
speaking of that surgery, if you want a little chuckle, go look up the video of him after the surgery talking about how the Packers are going to the Super Bowl or whatever. He was he was just out and just out of surgery and still on some pretty heavy meds, folks.
He had that true serum.
Yeah. He had whatever they gave Aaron Rodgers after that Monday night game against the Bears a few years ago.
Oh, no.
All right, over to the matchups. I mentioned it before, but to reiterate, we had a league median score this week of 209.00. I don't see the 0.00 often. 209 even.
Big jump from last week.
I would say, yeah, that's a pretty big jump. Was 181 last week, so that's a jump of 28 points in 1 week. When we start reading off these scores, you're going to notice it right away. Our highest scoring team this week was Mel. Mel put up a 262.63, and that's a nice week. Unfortunately for me, I was on the receiving end of this because I was the second highest scoring team, and I put up 240.06.
That one hurts. At least we got the medians.
Yeah, right. Having the extra game against the median helps. I go 1-1 despite the fact that I had the second most points. Congrats to Mel. That's a hell of a week. So I did something a little bit different this week than I have been in the past. I went through all these matchups earlier and I wrote down every player that was over 30 points, and then I wrote down all the players that were over 20 points. So I'm gonna try to,
Got to be a long list.
well, I did this for every single matchup. Some matchups obviously are longer lists than others. So for players in this matchup over 30 points, Mel had Russell Wilson, Jamar Chase, and Tucker Kraft. On my side, I had Puka Nacua was my only player over 30 points. But huge weeks from those guys.
Yeah, we talked
Chase,
about it. We talked about how Chase was a week
yeah,
wrecker. We talked about Allen last week, and Chase did his thing this week.
Chase 44.5 points.
Yeah, that'll just ruin your week when you're playing against that.
Yeah. Well, if he put up 25 points, this is a 2-point matchup. If he puts up 22 points, a very, very nice week, I win. Jamar Chase is just such a game changer when he does this.
Yep.
He's he's the number one, he was the number one redraft pick for a reason. He just can go out there and single-handedly win a week. But he didn't do it quite single-handedly in this case because, again, Russell Wilson 31 points and Tucker Kraft 30 points.
Russell Wilson.
Huh?
Said Russell Wilson
Yeah.
turning back the clock.
Russell Wilson 30 completions, 450 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 terrible interception in overtime. Another 23 rushing yards. I watched most of that game because, I'm a Giants fan, and for some reason I'm cursed to watch Russ on the Giants. He played really well. He was
Yep.
chucking it everywhere. He was going over the middle of the field, which is something you never hear from Russ. He was going deep like he always has. It was an impressive game to see.
Yeah, the moon ball was working this week. We definitely staved off concerns that he was going to be replaced, at least for one more week. Early in the week, we weren't sure. Abel didn't want to commit to him after last week's performance, but he bought himself a little bit of a leash here after this week. I know they didn't get the win, but
I was gonna say they didn't even win.
yeah.
Lost in overtime. It was a tough one there. All right, so we mentioned on the other side of things, Puka with a 30-point game as well. He had a 45-yard touchdown run that he probably should have been tackled in the backfield on. So that was fun.
Yeah, he almost fumbled the handoff. That was almost a disastrous play, but because he's Puka, he just broke through some arm tackles and took it for a touchdown.
He's special. I really enjoy the way he plays.
Oh, he's so much fun to watch.
All right, so other high-scoring players in this matchup: Spencer Rattler, Cooper Kupp, and Ramondre Stevenson, all over 20 points for Mel. On my side,
did you say Spencer Rattler? I'm sorry. Can we go back?
Nope. Spencer Rattler, 20-point game. Yep. Didn't mean to brush past that one too quickly. 22.68.
Mel's quarterbacks this week in the highest scoring week of the season were Russell Wilson and Spencer Rattler, who combined for 50 plus points.
Well, we talked about Jamar Chase. We also mentioned how Josh Allen is obviously a game breaker as well. Josh Allen this week put up 12.07. I'm going against Josh Allen, and he has probably the worst fantasy game of his season, despite the fact that his team won by 20 points.
And Justin Fields had 2 points.
And Justin Fields had nothing, and then goes out injured. And I'm like, oh man, this is great. I'm in good shape here. And I take a look, and Mel's just got points coming out of every other player like crazy. Spencer Rattler played against Mac Jones, and they combined for 6 passing touchdowns. What planet are we living on?
Well, this is why we play best ball, because nobody started those guys in their lineup.
I don't want to play best ball this week. There's another week where I set almost my perfect lineup. I think I made 1 mistake, maybe 2 mistakes again. Yeah, 2 mistakes this week.
This is what happens when you have no bench.
Shut up, all right? So those guys all over 20 points, and then the rest of Mel's lineup very, very solid as well. All double-digit scores for everybody else. Ertz as his tight end too, with almost 24 as well. I didn't mention him before. On my side of things, players over 20 points. Tet at 20 even. JSN over 20. Jake Ferguson, or mid 20s, 25, I think. Mahomes 23, and the most important player that we saved for last, Troy Franklin, 27.25 points.
He's here.
It took us a bit, but we have arrived.
Never wrong, only early.
Never wrong, just early. Exactly. No, I'm very happy with the way most of the team played. Mel's got to be happy with the way his guys produced as well.
So can we talk about the Franklin thing? Because I'm not sure that this is a fluke.
Well,
He has been playing the majority of the snaps. I think it was over 80% of the snaps the last couple of weeks when most of the offseason, all of the talk was that Mims was going to be the guy, and Mims was playing most of the snaps in the preseason with the starters, and Franklin was kind of battling with Vandelay, and then all of a sudden Vandelay got traded, and Mims reverted back to what he has been for his entire career, being a part-time gadgety player. And Franklin's the one who's really stepped up. You know, it hasn't been the rookie Pat Bryant like a lot of people were clamoring for. It's really been Troy Franklin.
yeah, he's basically taken over the wide receiver one job. I don't know if that's going to hold because you've got Sutton there still, and he's going to get his. But
Yeah, most weeks it's still going to be Sutton, but they're not getting
exactly,
anything out of their backs or tight ends. And this is an offense that's usually pretty focused on getting those players targets. But yeah, it's been Franklin.
I'm thrilled. He had 9 targets this week. I think he's like you say. He led in this week. I think he led the receiving room in snap share and routes run. I'm not sure if that was the case week 1, but he's been on the field a ton, and you know they're going to rotate their guys at least a little bit because Champagne can't not do that.
Yep.
But if he gets anywhere near this level of work, he's gonna produce. He's a good enough player. We've seen that when he gets the targets, good things tend to happen.
Yep. And we know he's got the trust of Bo Nix from their time in Oregon. They were very productive together for a long time in college.
Yeah. Last year, it did look like he had trouble acclimating to the speed of the game. It does not look the same this year, and he did add some weight. I don't. He's never going to be a big receiver, but he added a little bit of bulk. You know, he weighs probably more than me by now, which I'm pretty sure was not the case last year
not,
for an NFL player.
not a very high bar to clear. But yeah,
So
he looks like a different player this year, and he's earning snaps and he's earning these targets. He's
yeah,
been playing
to
very
me,
well.
he doesn't look like a different player from his college tape. He looks like a different player from last year's tape, though. Which
Right, that's what I mean.
you know, that's what I was hoping for last year. Thrilled to see it this year instead.
Yeah, it's nice when you get guys like this that kind of come out of nowhere a little bit. I know not to you, but for the dynasty community at large, we kind of wrote him off once he dropped in the NFL draft and then wasn't super productive last year. A lot of times we forget that dynasty is a longer term projection. We're very quick to write guys off if they're not productive immediately off the bat.
So the one thing I want to ask you about before we move on is on Mel's team. Didn't get a good week out of Brees Hall. We're going to be up and down with that room, I think, with that team, I think. But this is 2 weeks in a row that we've had basically nothing from AJ Brown, fantasy wise. 5 catches for 27 yards. I mean,
It's a huge improvement from last week.
you're not wrong, but
I mean, 8 targets. He got 1 last week, so
yeah.
it's
Well,
a big jump. But it
Hurts
wasn't a
only
very
threw
big
for
jump in production.
101 yards.
Yeah, it wasn't that that passing offense looks a little broken right now.
Yeah. Is this something you'd be worried about if you were the Brown manager?
I mean, we saw this in fits and spurts last year where we thought the offense was broken and they were just kind of relying on Barkley to save them. It looked very similar so far this year. Only Barkley hasn't been able to be superhuman and score from 80 yards out multiple times. But we'll see. It's possible they're missing Kellen Moore more than they thought they would.
Yeah. I would be, if I was the manager of pretty much anyone on the Eagles outside of Saquon, I think I'd be a little bit worried for fantasy purposes here. I'm sure they'll figure it out at some point, but for the immediate, I would be concerned.
Yeah, they played a couple of very tough defenses to start as well. So hopefully the new play caller can kind of get his footing here because we've seen this in the past. The Eagles have run hot and cold, and it's been pretty much in line with their coordinators. The coordinators ends up either becoming a head coach on a different team the next year or they get fired.
Yeah.
There's been no in between for them.
All right, let's move on. Our next highest scoring team was your team. You put up a 233.25 and you beat Judd, who put up a 184.22. So you go 2-0. Judd, unfortunately, drops to 0-4 to start the year. Good week for your team. You guys had 2 players over that 30-point mark. On your side of things, Jared Goff had a 38.96.
We
and
had
on
a bunch
the
of
other
lions.
side,
That's what happened.
Judd had Amon-Ra St. Brown with a 43.7. Seems like these two are a little bit linked to me.
Yeah, Goff threw 5 touchdowns, 3 of them to St. Brown. Kind of canceled him out there.
Yeah, that was a very impressive day for the Detroit offense.
Yeah, nice bounce back.
Yeah, good.
And Goff finally got his first win with a non-coordinated offense from McVay or Johnson. And they put that stat where he was like 0-18 in his career with games that weren't coordinated by McVay or Johnson.
Jeez, I didn't see that. That's tough. And you have to imagine that for the guys in Detroit, it felt good to put that kind of beat down on Chicago with Ben Johnson on the other sideline.
Yeah, it looked purposeful because they were still throwing the ball up by 4 touchdowns late in the fourth quarter.
Going forward on 4th down, yeah.
Right. Yeah, they did not take their foot off the gas at any point in that game.
There was no indication ever that Campbell would go easy on anyone. So
yeah, I think they needed it after how sluggish they looked last week.
And
we saw what the Packers defense did to the Commanders this week, so maybe the Packers just have a really good defense.
On paper that defense is scary, and in reality, it's looked great through 2 weeks. So
yeah, it's made a couple of really good offenses look really bad early on.
Other players in this matchup over 20 points for your team: Jahmyr Gibbs to go along with Amon-Ra and Jared Goff, CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle with a 20-point game that we haven't seen a lot of those. And Dak Prescott in your QB2 spot, also over 20 points.
Yeah, a couple of nice bounce back performances this week. Dak struggled pretty badly last week, at least from a fantasy perspective. I think he kind of played better in real life, but bounce back for fantasy. And then the Dolphins offense as a whole had a much better week this week. They still lost, of course, because they're the Dolphins, but it was at least a little bounce back for the offense between Tua and Waddle and Hill.
A couple interesting notes about your lineup here. Your tight ends were both
Browns,
both Cleveland Browns. You had Fannin and Njoku in your 2 tight end spots, which I'm sure we've seen this at some point where some of these 2 starting tight ends were on the same team, but off the top of my head, I can't think of when or who that was.
It was me last week.
Well, okay. I meant like last year, previous years, like before these 2 guys.
Yeah, this is now 2 weeks in a row that both tight ends have been in my lineup, and it's been on a winning score again. Not as productive as last week, but still, I mean, decent tight end scores. Anything in the double digits, that'll work in this league.
Yeah, those will play. On the other side of the matchup, over 20 points for Judd. I keep wanting to say Jared. It's James Cook, Jordan Love, and Jake Browning in that quarterback 2 spot was at 19.24. If he had played the full game, he'd have been over 20.
Yep. Yeah, he did a nice job filling in. I mean, fantasy wise, and for the Bengals, he led them back to win that game.
Yeah, so a little bit disappointing for Judd at the tight end positions. Kate Otten and Knox in there at 8.25 and 6.4. Just not the scores that you can get away with and still get over that median.
Hey, at least he got points this week. Last week was double goose eggs.
Yeah. Well, he had a couple goose eggs in his flex spots as well last week, which he fortunately did not have to suffer this week. But his last flex spot, last non-super flex spot, was filled with a 3.95 from Calvin Austin.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. It's just not enough players here to kind of fill out a roster, unfortunately. He's got a lot of guys that are going to be in the lineup whether they score points or not, which is not the sign of a competitive team. So I'm not sure where he goes from here, especially now that Burrow's out for the year. I know he does have Browning, which may allow him to continue to kind of tread water a little bit, but yeah, it's he's in a tough spot right now. I don't This is not the same competitive roster that we're used to for basically the entirety of this league's existence.
All right. Our next highest scoring team was Big. Big put up a 222.21. Next time, can we please get 1/100th of a point added to this? He beat Rug, who put up a 212.42. So this is another matchup, our second of the day, where both teams were over the median. So this is 2 weeks in a row now where Rug has gotten a little bit unlucky and finished above the median score, but taken a loss in the win-loss column anyways.
Two head-to-head losses,
Yeah.
2 times over the median. Yeah, that's again, we talked about last week. This is a much improved team compared to last year. This is a very competitive team, as told by being over the median both weeks. Unfortunately, he's had some rough matchup luck, having to play a couple of strong playoff teams from last year. But got to be happy about the direction of the team, at least. I know it's 0-2 head-to-head, but 2-0 against the median, it's got to feel nice.
I would say he's probably both happy and annoyed at the same time, which is what I would be in that instance. It's like, well, that's where I am this week. I'm happy and annoyed. I'm happy that I beat the median and annoyed that I lost to Mel. For players over 30 points in this matchup, there's only one on Rug's side of things. It was Wandale Robinson, courtesy of that 455 yards that Russ threw.
He had 142 yards. That's like normally that would take about 500 targets for him. He only had 10 this week.
He has looked significantly better this year. He was hurt last year, and I just kind of chalked it up to like, yeah, NFL players are always hurt. But he actually looks much better with the ball in his hands this year.
And in the preseason, it was interesting because they were using him down the field a lot. And we said, well, it's preseason, weird stuff happens. I doubt his whole career, he's been one type of player. Yeah. I doubt that they're going to change it suddenly. But in this game, I mean, they actually used him down the field.
Yeah, he caught a 50-yard pass that probably traveled 60 yards in the air.
Right. This is not all the 2-yard average depth of target like he normally sees.
Yeah. And on this, he's still been getting his usual allotment of screen targets, like a couple of those a game, and he hasn't been going down to the first arm tackle that he sees this year.
Yep.
So hopefully he can continue to do that for my sake, because I enjoy watching the Giants.
Well, this offense could really use it as well. I mean, you need some kind of dynamic threat besides Neighbors. You can't just chuck it to Neighbors 15 times a game and hope for the best.
Not with
some other threat there is helpful.
Yeah. So on Rug's side of things, other players over 20 points. We had Drake May, Debo Samuel, and Bryce Young. So it was 2 quarterbacks and then Debo. Actually, Debo had a 19.65. I wasn't sure whether I should count rounding up from there. My 9-year-old is learning rounding in school right now, so I'm rounding everything automatically.
Yeah, the Bryce Young is interesting. He had a really good game if you take out all of the Xavier Legette targets. If you just subtract those
from his line. Can we just ignore that one player's targets? Is that how it works?
I mean, 8 targets for -2 yards and an interception to Leggett. The rest of the line looks really good.
He threw the ball 55 times. Let me tell you, I didn't see a lot of that game. I would like to go rewatch it because the plays that I did see, I looked up every McMillan catch and he looks great. Um, Thrilled with the way he's playing. Also, did
Yep.
you see the catch that McMillan made out of bounds?
Yeah, McMillan is good.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I didn't see most of that game, but I did see the entire final drive, and it might have been the ugliest football I watched all week. No, it was bad. Like the drive kept getting extended because of like bad penalties. You know, they were actual penalties, but like the other team shouldn't have been taking them. Arizona was just trying as hard as they could to give that game away, and the Panthers were just like, no, no, we insist, you take it. It was it was ugly at the end, but the stat line for Bryce is good. 328 yards, 3 touchdowns, only one pick.
Yeah, this is what happens when you have a furious comeback for like 3 quarters.
Yeah. Yeah, they were down pretty big. The question I'd have if I was Rugg is what's going on with Brian Thomas Jr. right now?
Yeah, what's going on with the Jaguars offense? They don't look so hot outside of ETN. The passing offense has not been very efficient.
It's been questionable, and I would be slightly concerned if, as a manager there. Not panicking or anything, but I would have questions that I would want answers for.
Yeah, and we talked about it. It's a new coach, new scheme, so there's probably going to be an adjustment period. But you think that the way that Thomas and Lawrence played together last year, they would have some kind of chemistry. We saw one catch on 9 targets week one, and then a 4 catches on 12 targets week two.
Yeah.
And
He's
one of them
getting the
was
looks. 21 targets over 2 weeks is great.
yeah, and one of them was really bad where he kind of short armed a hospital
Alligator
ball
arms,
and
yeah.
popped it up in the air for an interception. So yeah, it's been a rough start to the season for a guy that we had pretty much locked in as a wide receiver one after the way he played last year as a rookie.
Yeah. I
But
saw
it's only 2 weeks. It's only 2 weeks.
I saw a link to someone that had posted like a very brief film breakdown of like a preseason play where Lawrence and Thomas were both in, and Lawrence threw a hospital ball to him, and I think and the guy was saying like he thinks that Thomas does not trust that Lawrence will protect him with his throws, which I don't know, that could be just armchair analysis, but if that's legit, then that could be a problem for a bit.
Lawrence has been one of the least accurate quarterbacks, not completion percentage wise, but as far as like on target throws.
Yeah.
So it would not be surprising if his guys are maybe getting a little gun shy. Nobody likes to be laid out.
Right.
Not fun.
So the nice thing for Rugg to see is a couple of young guys getting touchdowns. He had Horton and Iomanner both catch touchdowns, and Iomanner put up a decent stat line even outside of that with 56 yards. So I'm sure he's happy with the young guys producing there, even if some of the veterans are struggling a little bit. Not that not that Brian Thomas Jr. is a seasoned veteran; he's only in his second year, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, Iamana really has kind of come in and re- quickly surpassed Van Jefferson and Tyler Lockett to be the number 2 target. And this week he really looked like the number 1 target over Ridley. He gets a vast majority of the air yards on this team, and he's out there for pretty much every route, every passing play. So that's definitely promising to see for a guy that was a day 3 rookie. Usually don't see him kind of ascend to this type of role in the offense that quickly. It helps that the offense is not very good, so it's easy for him to ascend, but it's still nice to see.
Yeah, definitely feels nice when you nail a 4th round pick. All right, on big side of the matchup, no players over 30 points, but we had a long list of players over 20 points. Mac Jones, courtesy of those 3 touchdowns we mentioned earlier. Javante with 26. Christian McCaffrey with almost 25. Tyreek Hill, 109 yards, gets him to 20.4. Trey McBride over 20. Ken Walker over 20. Looks a lot looked a lot better this week than he did last week. And Baker Mayfield, almost 20 points, 19.65. So no huge scores this week for any bigs guys, but a lot of very good scores.
Yeah, this is what his roster can do, even on a quote unquote down week for him,
Yeah.
where he didn't have any huge ceiling games. He's just got so many players and so much depth. He can roll out 20-point performances at almost every position.
No, that wasn't almost every position. That was literally every position. He had a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end, all over 20 points.
Yeah, he only had a handful of starting lineup spots that weren't filled with 20-point
Yeah.
performances.
And we talked about him in the waiver session. Tonjes did in fact end up as his tight end too with that 11.7. So immediate benefit from having the that waiver win. All right, over to Flea and Georgia Mike. Flea won this one 211.57 to Georgia Mike's 206.43. Close matchup there. Just over 5 points separating them. Flea is our last team to make it over the median this week, and Georgia Mike is our first team just under the median. For players over 30 points, only one in this matchup, Rome Odunze with a 35.55 for Georgia Mike. I lied. I have Taylor. I didn't. So I wrote down all the players over 20 points, and I went back and put boxes around the ones over 30. And I didn't get a box around Taylor. Let's leave this all in. It's a new process. We're working out the kinks as we go. Sorry, Flea. So before we get to Taylor, Rome Odunze, 35 points, 2 touchdowns, 128 yards. It appears as though he might be the wide receiver one.
Right, we talked about it when we had the roster review for DJ Moore on Mel's team, and we said, well, is Rome Odunze going to take over as the wide receiver one in this offense? After 2 weeks, it sure looks like he has. Kind of left DJ Moore in the dust a little bit.
Yeah, he's looked good. He's scored the touchdowns. He's running pretty much every route that the offense has, as far as I can tell. Not that DJ Moore looks bad, because he doesn't, but it's, for those people who were backing Rome as one of the top receivers last year, it's nice to see him come out and do it like this at the start of his second season.
Yeah, he finally looks like the guy that they drafted.
Yeah, I mean, you spent the 9th overall pick on him in a very deep, talented draft class last year, so you'd feel pretty bad if you didn't nail that pick. All right, and Jonathan Taylor, 31 points even on the other side of things, 165 yards on the ground and another 50 yards and a touchdown through the air. That's a big boy game.
Yeah, against a very tough defense, too. He really helped them grind out this win.
Yeah, a lot of people had Denver as legitimately the best defense in the league. And if they're not, they're close to it, although they didn't really play that way this week.
Or maybe they just ran into the buzzsaw that is Daniel Jones.
Speaking of, Daniel Jones is on Georgia Mike's team. He was his QB1, 23.59 points. Who knew that Daniel Jones had this in him?
Well, the Colts clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, they benched their starting quarterback.
Shane Steichen did.
Their highly drafted starting quarterback from last year to bring Daniel Jones off the scrap heap. And he sure makes him look smart after 2 weeks. We chalked up last week to the Dolphins paper mache secondary, but this was a very good Denver Broncos team that he just dreaded.
Yeah, he worked his way down the field. I think the first 3 drives ended in scores or something like that, and add that on to like the 7 from the first game. They went 11 drives before they had one that didn't end in points, and they still have not punted this year.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Just like we all drew it up in the offseason, right?
Yep. Just like we all expected. For Georgia Mike, the only other player over 20 points was his QB2, Trevor Lawrence, at 20.99. They lost that game to Cincinnati after Joe Burrow went down in, was it the second quarter? I don't know. They were winning when Joe Burrow got hurt, and somehow they lost the game to Browning. But hey, Trevor Lawrence had a good fantasy day.
Yeah, I don't wasn't a very good real life day, but hey, we don't care about that. We got fantasy points, so
No, we don't
that's
care
all that
about that at all.
matters.
And that was his only other 20-point performance. But Bucky Irving 19.6 and Jamison Williams 19.8. So he had a couple guys right on the cusp there, which explains why he was so close in this matchup.
Yeah, the big thing for him is to continue to try to get some decent tight end two production, which he got from Hooper this week was in double digits. Wasn't a huge game, but better than the zero last week. We saw he got some production from Michael Mayer, kind of kept him off the zeros there, and then some surprising running backs. Chubb saved his fantasy day with a long touchdown right before the end of that game.
Yeah, it was an impressive run, actually. I was not expecting that out of Nick Chubb at this stage of the
Yeah,
game.
especially after what we'd seen through the first 58 minutes of that game.
Yeah.
He
Hey, but
had
Woody
like
Mark started getting some run.
yeah, this is an interesting discussion because we saw that Damian Pierce was made inactive this week. They wanted to keep British Brooks, the fullback, and Jacob Johnson, the other fullback, and they kind of wanted to run this power offense with Chubb, and it didn't look very good for most of the game. Outside of that 25-yard touchdown run, he was just running into brick walls all night. And Marks gave him a big spark, and he looked good in the receiving game. He had a long 37-yard reception, which I think Nick Chubb has one reception of that length in his entire career. So
He's never been a pass catcher though. Like
he
that's
brings
not
a
fair.
different explosive element that Chubb does not. So we may see some more Woody Marks carries here going forward, which is not great for Chubb because he's kind of relying on volume at this point.
Yeah. All in all, for Georgia Mike, I'd say this is another encouraging week here, despite the fact that he doesn't get a win, because you have to imagine you'll have better days from guys like McConkey and Chase Brown and Charbonnet, who was on his bench, and you're not gonna get single digit scores out of most of those guys most of the time.
Yeah, better days ahead, hopefully. I mean, unfortunately, it was an 0-2 week, but it could have been better depending on the matchup. And the points were just below the median. It's, it hurts to be that team that just missed. I know you went through that a lot last year. Being like the
Last year
first
I
team
didn't.
under the
Last
median.
year I didn't care. Last year didn't matter. This year we care.
When you're fighting for a playoff spot, it definitely hurts to be just under and just miss out on the matchup.
Well, let's talk about the team that just got over that median. So for Flea, obviously we talked about Taylor. Other players over 20 points for her squad this week. Bijan Robinson, as you would expect most weeks, and Devontae Adams. Bijan with a 21, Devontae Adams with a 25. The rest of her team below the 20-point line, Jalen Warren had 19.65, so he was almost there. But outside of that, no other huge performances.
It was a big bounce back week for her team.
Yeah.
Team looked kind of dead on arrival last week. This week, much different story. And a lot of it was her tight end production. She got a touchdown from Lions backup tight end Brock Wright. I think Laporta was briefly out of that game
Yeah,
at,
he missed
at
a
80
little
points,
bit.
and Wright was able to get in a touchdown. She got, 20, 21, 22 points from her tight ends. That's a lot more than she got last week. She kind of needs to get these rogue touchdowns to get some semblance of scoring out of this room.
I think the tight end room that she has is kind of sparse, and she has a lot of them. So she's going to luck into these, and it's not luck because like if you have that many, she's going to get these random touchdown weeks. And her other tight end, Tommy Tremble, only 3 catches, 20 yards, and a first down, but that's still almost 8 points for your tight end two spot. I guess it's 8 points is good enough most of the time.
Not zero.
Yeah. And you look at the other side of things, Kyle Pitts and Austin Hooper getting, was this 21.75? Well, she got just over 22 points from Brock Wright and Tommy Tremble. Cost to acquire here is much lower for her side of this.
Right.
getting creative with how you build the room. In her case, I think it's kind of out of necessity, but still, it gets the job done this week.
Yeah. Yeah, the roster construction helped this week for sure.
Outside of that, no big games. Stafford solid at just under 18 points. ETN with a second good game in a row, 17.65. Not quite the, what was that, 140 yards rushing, but still a couple catches, touchdown, 71 yards on the ground. That's a solid week. Our next highest scoring team was JMC. JMC put up a 191.5. He beat Criddle, who put up a 176.67. I've been missing out on giving these records here. In our last matchup, Lee moves to 2-2, and Georgia Mike moves to 2-2, coming from opposite ends of it. So in this one, Criddle falls to 1-3. JMC rises to 1-3. I don't know.
Yeah, it's his first one of the year.
Yeah, it's his first win. Doesn't beat the median, but gets on the board regardless, which I believe. Yeah, let's see. Leaves just Judd and Mr. Good News without a win, and leaves Mel, Big, and your team as the only teams without a loss. But as I was saying on this matchup, for players over 30 points, we only have one. It is Malik Neighbors, who put up a 41.95. It's just Giants passing game all over these box scores.
Yeah, not the first time, and probably not the last time that Neighbors does something like this. He's really blossomed into a game wrecker.
I mean, I don't know if he's blocked. He started off as a game wrecker. He had 170 targets as a rookie. Like
Yes,
there
that's fair.
there was no acclimation period. There was no pause. It was just hit the ground running and just start blowing up everything.
He's been a game wrecker from the jump. That's fair.
So
my favorite part about this matchup is that JMC won the week with a negative quarterback score.
What are you talking about? His quarterback plays for the Giants. The Giants put up 455 yards passing.
Yeah, but he's got the backup quarterback.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So Jackson Dart
actually would have been a better score if he had the third string quarterback for the Giants.
The amazing part of this
zero.
Is JMC only has two quarterbacks on the roster, and they both scored negative points. He couldn't even get a zero in the position. Mel must have been absolutely giddy when this happened, because he's mentioned putting negative points in before zeros before. This time he didn't even have to do that because there was no zero option.
Yeah, it was a pretty funny result from the quarterback spot that he can laugh about because he got the win this week.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
But it's a little bit troubling going forward.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to be thrilled either way, because now he's missing McCarthy to injury, and Dart probably won't start for a couple more weeks at the earliest. But the rest of this matchup here, other 20-point performers for JMC, Hunter Renfro, I should say, at 26.55, caught two touchdowns, only 48 yards, but
for Hunter Renfro.
I mean.
Listen, hey, the Panthers are desperate for a second weapon to emerge behind Tet. They have nothing out there. Leggett is worse than zero right now. So they need somebody else to produce. And right now it's Hunter Renfro. Until they get Jalen Coker back from IR, like Renfro is going to absorb targets.
He's a pro. Like he's going to be in the right spot out there. He's got good hands. He's not, he's not an explosive player or anything, but he's going to do the right. He's going to run the right route and be in the right spot for the quarterback. So
this guy was a garbage man a couple of weeks ago. Couple of months, maybe.
I mean, it's kind of silly because
he was this close to not even being re-signed by the team because his daughter was watching Bluey on his phone and kept ignoring the GM's calls. Did you hear that story?
I did. Yeah. Kids are the best.
All kids are the same.
Yeah. So the other player over 20 points for this roster, H&H, 27.7, only 30 yards on 11 carries, but 8 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown on 10 targets.
He gets wide receiver one usage running back. So any running Any rushing stats he gets are just basically bonus at this point.
So between those three players, he that's about half. It's actually probably it's literally more than half of JMC's fantasy production this week. There's some tough spots. You look tight end two, Washington at 2 points. Darnell Washington, I should specify in case anyone forgot Darnell's first name.
Yeah, he caught a 2 point conversion, and that was
Yeah.
the extent of his stats. He
His
didn't
stat
actually
line,
catch a pass.
his stat line is 0 catches on 1 target, 2 point conversion.
Yeah, we knew tight end was going to be a trouble spot for him. We haven't really seen it from Loveland yet. He's still struggling to break into that rotation and get a bigger chunk of the target share and route share from Cole Kmet.
You have to assume it'll come at some point, but
Yeah, better days ahead. They took this guy in early in the first round.
yeah, it was
At some point,
10th
he's going to get
overall.
top 10. At some point, he's going to get more playing time. It's just a matter of paying his dues and phasing out the veteran. They're not handing him a starting job. It's not like what the Colts did for Tyler Warren, basically just immediately made him the centerpiece of the offense.
To be fair,
They're
that seems to be working fairly well.
right. They're making Loveland earn it. Komet is a legitimate NFL player.
Yeah.
He's been very good for a long time, and he's been an important part of this team. And he's still signed through this year, so we kind of knew that this was going to be the case. It's not like Warren competing against Ogletree and Mallory and Gigantor. It's a little bit different situation. Loveland's having a fight for everything that he can get right now, so
Yeah.
we'll
And
see that switch at
we
some point.
we've talked about it before. Tight end is one of the most difficult positions to come into the NFL and pick up everything immediately. So it could be that it's just is a transition period and he'll get there sooner or later.
Yep.
All right, let's take a look at Criddle's team. Unfortunate week for Criddle here. Some disappointing performances, but a few guys over 20 points nonetheless. Chuba Hubbard 20.7. Deami Brown 20.35. Everyone expected that one. And Juwan Johnson 20.65. So all the rest of the guys a little bit lower than that, and most specifically a little bit disappointing at quarterback, where CJ Stroud was his QB1 with a 14.73, and Hurts, his normal QB1, in the super flex spot with a 10.54.
Yeah, it was a rough week for the Eagles offense. I know they got the win, which is all they care about, but
Yeah.
the fantasy production was not stellar. And as the Eagles go, tends to be how Criddle's team
So
goes.
does Criddle's roster, yes.
The big story though is to me is Juwan Johnson. I mean, for the first time in his career, he's getting a full complement of snaps. They're not playing him as a part-time player. He's playing pretty much every down, and we know what he can do as a receiver. If he's out there for that many snaps, he's going to accumulate targets and yards and touchdowns, and he's done that through the first 2 weeks. He's been one of the best tight ends.
Yeah, week one, he was tight end 1. This week, he was tight end 4. 23 points last week, 20 points this week. Let me see. On the season in PPR scoring, which we are, he's the number 2 tight end.
Right, and I don't expect this. This is not a fluky thing based on a couple of big plays or fluke touchdowns. He's earning these numbers, and I mean, as long as he's out there as the every down tight end, he's going to continue this.
You have to imagine that the team sees the success they're having as well, and will want to continue using him in this manner.
Yep.
So a good one for Criddle there. He's held on to him for a bit, and nice to see a guy emerge. It's not like he's a young guy. He's 29 now, but tight ends generally have a little bit of a longer shelf life.
Right. Especially guys that started their career as wide receivers.
Right. All right. And other guys on this team, Pearsall had 4 catches, 56 yards. Like I said, the team got the win, and I'm sure that's what the team cares about. I'm interested to hear your opinion on Pearsall, because I think a lot of people were pretty excited for him to have some options as the potential wide receiver 1 there. Now, obviously, it's Mac Jones throwing the ball, not Brock Purdy, but Mac looked fine this week. So what are your thoughts on Pearsall at the moment?
I mean, it's Jawan Jennings. It always has been. Jawan Jennings is the one there. Pearsall is, he's a supporting receiver. He's not earning targets like Jennings does at Jennings' rate. We saw a little bit last week because Jennings was hurt and Pearsall was the last man standing basically in the wide receiver core. But this week it was kind of back to some semblance of a normal hierarchy. And we'll see what we get from Kendrick Bourne going forward. He was signed off the street and immediately slotted in as the number 3 receiver there. So looks like maybe we'll have some stability with these 3 guys as long as they can all stay healthy, which because they're 49ers, we can never say
You
that.
can never guarantee that. Yeah. All right. I think Criddle will have some better weeks. I think you can count on higher scores from Stroud and Hurts most of the time. Not all the time, most of the time. Yeah, a little bit disappointing this week. Hopefully he'll get a bounce back soon. All right, our final matchup and our next highest scoring team was Flinch. Flinch put up a 169.29, and he beat Mr. Good News, who put up a 114.5.
This was a pure matchup win.
Yes.
This is not an earned. This is not an earned win.
These are the 2 lowest scoring teams this week. So Flinch gets the win. He goes to 1-3, but
I'll take it.
Any other matchup, and he does not get this win. This is the inverse of what happened with my team.
It was well timed.
Hey, you play the schedule that's in front of you. There's nothing else you can't do. I say I should hammer that one home. Flinch and I inverse. Cut that. So players over 30 points, unfortunately none. Players over 20 points, Flinch had 3. He had Lamar Jackson, who had a 28.8. Lamar doing his usual, just, Superman act. Juwan Jennings, that wide receiver 1 you mentioned a minute ago, and George Pickens, who put up a 21.05. Oh, I lied. I said 3. I meant 4 because Bo Nix was also over 20 points at 23.49. The disappointment for this week for Flinch comes at his running back spots. His running back 1 was Kyron, who only put up 10.75, and his running back 2 didn't expect to see this one because he's got Derrick Henry, but his running back 2 was Justice Hill, who put up a 5.5.
Yeah, for a team that's mostly built around running backs, it wasn't a great week, obviously, with his running back 1 and 2 combining for 15 points. For all the talk that the Browns did about how easy Derrick Henry was to tackle, he didn't exactly prove him wrong this week. It was not a great week for Derrick Henry.
No, it was not a great week for Henry, but the team won by 25 points. So did they?
That's because they were playing the Browns. All right.
Yeah. So
they didn't need him.
If you're Henry, what do you just shrug it off because whatever, you're still.
You just point to the scoreboard.
Yeah, right. But like you said, they weren't entirely wrong. He didn't do anything.
Yeah, it just doesn't help for fantasy.
11 carries, 23 yards. But that's the thing with Henry. If he's got room to work, he's the best in the league. If he doesn't have room to work, well, he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just him, though. Harvey had another week where they only gave him a handful of carries. Just this week, he didn't break a 50-yard run.
Yeah.
And then Pacheco had another down week. The Chiefs have not been able to run the ball at all through the first couple of weeks. We'll see how sustainable this is going to be over the course of the year. They've played 2 very good run defenses to start the year. So maybe some hope going forward. But, yeah, the Chiefs offense has not looked great to start the year, especially running the ball outside of Mahomes scrambles.
Yeah. Mahomes is operating as their running back 1 now, which I'm sure that, the coach and the management of that team are thrilled by. I want to ask you about Flinch's tight ends. We're still waiting on the Kincaid breakout. It doesn't look like it's coming at this point. And Strange had 3 catches, but only 17 yards. I like both of these players, but Kincaid's been pretty disappointing since he came into the league for what he was billed as. And Strange is in that passing offense that seems to be a little bit all over the place right now. How are you viewing this?
Yeah, well, I think Strange specifically he's kind of a little bit further down the pecking order for targets and the the, the amount that the offense actually needs him to produce in
Well,
order to be functional.
when you can get that much work to Diami Brown, you have to do it.
So the offense isn't exactly built around tight end targets. So if the offense is struggling, it's going to be hard for him to put up meaningful fantasy lines. I mean, he got 5 targets. He plays basically every snap that matters for receiving production. So he will get his. It's just probably not going to be a consistent week. He's just not important enough to the offense where you're going to build your weekly passing game around him.
Yeah.
And Kincaid, I mean, he's just a part-time player. They just don't play him enough snaps. He seems to get a decent amount of targets when he's out there, but they just spread the ball around so much, and he doesn't play enough snaps. He hasn't been the big-time target earner that he was drafted to be. It's still good enough in our league. I mean, because any tight end production is useful.
Yeah, and I mean, 11 points is not awful. You're double-digit points. If you got 2 11-point scores every week at tight end, you could still build a functional team around them.
Yeah, if you got tight ends that are getting 5-6 targets a week, then you're probably going to do pretty good most weeks. You're going to get useful scores.
All right, let's take a look on Mr. Good News side of things. Unfortunately, no 20-point scorers, but still some promising games from some of his younger guys. Cam Ward looked competent again for the second week in a row to start his career. It's certainly encouraging stuff, even if the fantasy points aren't coming in.
Yeah, the stat line was a lot better. Still taking way too many sacks, but we saw a lot of the playmaking ability that he can kind of bring to the table. His first career touchdown was, him running out, flush out of the pocket, making things happen, throwing it across his body into the end zone to Io Manor. It's
a horribly ill-advised play that worked out fine. But man, I've seen the clip a bunch of times and yeah, it worked out. But please don't do that again. That's a terrible decision. Everybody's, oh man, did you see this play? I'm like, yeah, that's something I don't ever want my quarterback doing.
It's not something you draw up, obviously. He had another big 4th down that he picked up on a scramble early in the game. I mean, he's making plays. His team is not helping him. Around him, the team is not great. The line is not great, but definitely flashing upside and things.
There's a reason the team had the #1 overall pick.
Right. It's not a good team. They shoot themselves in the foot a lot. They have a ton of penalties, and they give up a lot of just insanely quick pressure where there's nothing that you can do besides just kind of fold down and absorb the sack. So it's probably going to be a long year. I'm not sure how much it's going to get better. And again, we talk about the receivers. As fun as Io Manor has been early in the season, you're still talking about a guy that was a day 3 pick. And they got DK out there. And again, he was another guy that was drafted as basically a returner that they're now forcing into the offense just to try to get some kind of playmaking out there. He's not a very refined route runner. It's not going to be a great year. You look for growth, you look for flashes, and hope that they don't shell shock him by getting him sacked 100 times this year.
Right. Well, speaking of growth and flashes, Egbuka, second week in a row, another touchdown. 4 catches, only 29 yards this time, but that whole game was a defensive struggle, so I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah, line plays for fantasy. I mean, he's been very productive 2 weeks now.
Yep.
So it's every bit like one of the top receivers in this class that he was billed as.
Yeah. Outside of that, not a whole lot with the young guys to write home about. Parker Washington does have 5 catches, 76 yards. I mean, someone in that Jacksonville offense has to produce, and why would it be Travis Hunter or Brian Thomas Jr.?
Yeah, it was a weird game for Hunter because he got pretty much all of his production in the first half, and then they had some injuries in the defensive secondary, so he pretty much played only defense in the second half, which led to Parker Washington being the third receiver for most of the second half, and he did all his damage in a short time. He wasn't even on the field for that many snaps, but he tends to draw a lot of targets when he's out there.
Yeah. Well, Washington's only 23 years old, so I wonder if it sort of makes sense for Mr. Good News to hold on to Washington to, you know, you have Hunter, and then if Hunter goes to the other side of things, like you said, plays all those defensive snaps, well, it'll probably be Washington to step in. So like maybe keep them paired.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he's got lots of available roster real estate, so it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt to have
Well, he's
anybody
got lots of roster,
roster.
but like he had 17.55 from Cavante Turpin. Turpin's 29 years old and is a career return man. I don't think he's turning down a, trade offer for Turpin the way he might for Washington, but,
Turpin was a guy that we forgot to put on the injury report, but did we really forget? I know he
I,
hurt his neck and left the game, and he's probably going to be out a while, but it's
yeah,
Cavante Turpin.
but
Although he has operated as the Cowboys wide receiver three. They have the big two, but not a lot behind him. So I mean, he was getting snaps, and he's been productive the first couple of weeks.
well, they'll have to figure out if it's going to be Tolbert or Mingo or someone else slotting it. I'd imagine it'll be Turpin.
Yeah, I think it hurts the Cowboys offense more than it hurts for fantasy because nobody's rostering these guys.
None of this is fantasy relevant for anything other than deep best ball. All right, anything you want to mention about Mr. Good News' roster here? Dare Gumbawale and DJ Giddens as his two running backs with the sweet zeros.
Combined 0 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a lot of running back production on this roster, mostly by design. Now, one of my favorite stat lines of the week was again with the Baltimore's ridiculous efficiency. Tez Walker, I think he played like 3 snaps and had 2 touchdowns. He now has 3 catches in his career for 3 touchdowns. Literally, all he does is catch touchdowns.
Hey, when you're good, you're good. Why waste time with all these other snaps? Just bring me in for the ones that count.
I mean, Walker was an interesting player because at one point he was one of the top prospects, and he kind of dropped to day 3 in the draft, and he got buried in Baltimore that had a bunch of other receivers. He doesn't like to throw much, so it's definitely fun to see him flash. I don't know if he can parlay this into a bigger role because there just isn't one there, but still fun to see.
When they throw 20 times a game, there's not enough snaps to go around.
Yeah, and they're rotating like 6 different receivers in at that wide receiver 3 spot behind Bateman and Flowers. So
All right. Well, that wraps up the matchups. So we have one more segment to get to. It's
everybody's
a
favorite
history
segment.
lesson on the assassination of Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's not right. That's not everybody's favorite segment.
We have America's favorite segment, the Dynasty Daddy percentage chance to make the playoffs.
There we go.
Our top 4 have not moved. The order has shuffled around a little bit. Currently, Big sitting at 98% chance. I want to know what world we're living in that's not 100. Second highest, we have 2 teams tied at 96%. That's your team and Mel's team. And then just behind that is my team at 94%. So same 4 teams at the start. These are the only teams that are 4-0 and 3-1. Everybody else is 2-2, 1-3, 0-4, etc.
Yeah, these are the 4 highest scoring teams this week. So not surprising that they're basically the same, unchanged from last week.
Interesting, after those top 4, at 63%, we have Flea, who jumped up a significant amount from last week. She started off 0-2. She's 2-2 now.
Yeah, that's the biggest jump in percentage chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what she was at last week, but I know it was not 63.
Yeah, it's a big jump. She was much further down this list.
Yeah. So with her at 63, just behind that, also 2-2 is Georgia Mike at 52%. Just behind that, Flinch at 1-3 is at 51%, and then Rugg is at 2-2, and he is at 33% chance. So Rugg tumbles a bit, Flea jumps up, but these are the same 4 that we saw in these 4 spots last week. It's just the order's changed a little.
Yep. Yeah, we haven't seen. It's only been 2 weeks, so not a lot of separation from these playoff hopeful teams yet. It's going to take a few more weeks before we start to see kind of a hierarchy develop.
Exactly. All right, and
if
then
we see one develop, there's still a chance that this is jumbled all the way through the end of the year.
We've seen everything come down to the wire like the last 3 years. There's no reason to believe it won't happen again.
Right.
All right. After that, we have the final 4 teams here. Judd is at 11%, despite his 0-4 start. He's the next highest team. Criddle with his 1-3 start is at 6%. And then Mr. Good News and JMC both less than 1% chance. And JMC has the 1 win. Mr. Good News is 0-4.
Yeah, these teams are combined 2-14 through the first 2 weeks, so not a ton of playoff hopes right now. I mean, things can change. We know that injuries can shake up rosters very quickly, but unfortunately, some of these teams down here had the most significant injuries as well. So
yeah, Judd losing Burrow does not help things. And
JMC losing McCarthy,
JJ McCarthy,
who was his only starting quarterback.
Yeah, it's a tough week for those guys, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a long season still.
Yep,
All right.
there's more trades to be made, more injuries to happen. Unfortunately,
I'm
see if
happy to
anybody
see
can
the
shake it up.
trades. Less happy to see the injuries.
Trades are far more fun to discuss than injuries.
Well, we will catch everybody next week, but until then,
See you in the league chat.